The high-speed SportsWire, watching that Wimbledon tennis was great.
Oh, man, the changing of the guard is now official. This will be a fun rivalry going forward. Talking Carlos Alcaraz, talking Jannik Sinner, talking about the end of the run for Novak Djokovic. Djokovic got blown out. His body is starting to betray him. He's had a great career. You know, had won all those Wimbledon titles. He's got 24 Grand Slams in his entire career, but at age 38, his body is really starting to break down. So Sinner blew him out in the semifinals. Alcaraz wore down Taylor Fritz, the San Diegan, in the other men's semifinal. And then they got here, and Alcaraz on Sunday won the first set 6-4. And, of course, Alcaraz had come off the phenomenal French Open showdown with Sinner and beat him in a 5.5-hour marathon. And then Sinner just turned the table. It's like he flipped the switch, and he beat Alcaraz at the net. He beat him deep. He beat him 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, and he won it going away. He finished it with a 137-mile-an-hour serve.
Whoa.
And Alcaraz he never found his rhythm. He just never got his legs. We kept waiting for Alcaraz to start breaking serve, making points, get the fans behind him. It just never happened. So Sinner from Italy really, really played a complete match, and Alcaraz just wasn't the same player in this championship go-round. I thought one of the really cool things at the end, when they came and they shook hands at the net, and you could tell Alcaraz was just devastated that he'd been dominated by Sinner. Alcaraz went and sat right at midcourt, and Sinner, of course, walked around, then ran into the stands to be with his family and his team, and Alcaraz stood up the entire time that Sinner was going around the stadium, and he stood there and he clapped.
Good for him.
It was really classy.
Yeah.
It was very, very impressive. On the women's side, if you blinked, you probably missed it because it only lasted 55 minutes.
It was sad.
I was blown away that it was so lopsided along the way. But Iga Swiatek out of Poland goes 6-love, 6-love, beat her opponent, who had beaten Sabalenka in the women's semifinals, which was a shocker. But she was not competitive at all. It was really lopsided. So, but Swiatek has had stretches where she's played well, and then somebody else has played well, and Sabalenka's played well, and Sabalenka self-destructs. So the women's side is wide open. There seems to be no heir apparent to the greatness of what Venus Williams was. So we'll see where it goes. But tell you, we got these two rivals on the men's side. Wow. So that's all things Wimbledon. British Open golf tournament. This is a cool story. So they're going to Ireland. They tee off Thursday in the rain and the cold, and I love Ireland. I love the summers of Ireland because you never know what you're going to get. Anyhow, they just played the Scottish Open, and Rory McIlroy finished second, stormed to the top of the leaderboard, almost won on Sunday in Scotland, got on a plane, flew to Ireland overnight. He was on the course for a practice round in the rain this morning at 7 a.m.
Oh, my God.
He is so amped. This is the second time Rory has played in the British Open in his home country of Ireland. So it's
Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland. So it's fascinating. But he was here at 7 a.m. in the rain for a practice round.
Hell yeah.
So British Open on Thursday. I don't know whether you like links golf or not, but it is such a different environment. It's such a different atmosphere. The buildings, the slopes, the sky, it is so cool. So nobody goes to bed Thursday morning. Just wake up, stay up all night, and watch the beginning of the British Open. It's really cool, especially the weather, because that sucker can change just like that.
Right.
So we got the British Open to talk about. Soccer, Team USA. I hope this doesn't happen, but there are talks. This all swirls around Christian Pulisic, the captain of Team USA. Al Nassr, the Saudi big money team that has Cristiano Ronaldo, is negotiating to try to lure Christian Pulisic to leave AC Milan and go play in the Saudi League. I hope he doesn't do this. I hope he doesn't take the blood money.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. If he wants to come back, go to the English Premier League. But those conversations are going on there right now. By the way, speaking of soccer, Club World Cup is history. Speaking of shockers, Chelsea scores 3 goals in the first half and blows out the Champions League title holder, Paris Saint-Germain.
That's big.
Paris Saint-Germain was never in that game. Cole Palmer, who I think is the next star, budding star, I think, in the English Premier League, scored 2 goals for Chelsea in that one. So that was something. I want to talk hockey for just a minute. It's a really ugly story. Toronto Star wrote a big story this past week. Those of us who broadcast hockey, I've talked about this a little bit. Legendary broadcaster Don Cherry from Hockey Night in Canada. I mean, he's an icon. Maybe he should be in the Hall of Fame. He was a longtime old Boston Bruins player, became a coach, didn't have great success as a coach, then became a media magnate. Anyhow, Don Cherry lost his job a couple of years ago on Hockey Night in Canada for saying a lot of rude, crude things on what Coach's Corner. Well, his co-anchor was a broadcaster by the name of Ron McLean, who's been there forever. They've been paired together forever. So anyhow, Don Cherry is very vocal about salute to the military. And on their Remembrance Day, which is like our Memorial Day, on their Remembrance Day, everybody wears poppies and buys poppies. So Don Cherry during the playoffs went haywire. He was talking about walking around the streets of Toronto and saw all these people that weren't wearing poppies. And everybody wears poppies in Canada. And he lost his mind, and he made reference, he made a racial slur about you people who don't buy poppies and support all of our fallen veterans. He'd read the poem Flanders, The Flowers of Flanders, World War I, World War II.
Yeah.
The guy's, he's unbelievable respect for military. He said, all you people, you should leave this country. And it had racial overtones to it.
Man, that's dumb.
Anyhow, he got terminated by Hockey Night in Canada. So the Toronto Star writes this column 3 years after the fact, insinuating that Don Cherry decided to self-destruct because he didn't want to work anymore with Ron McLean, and he was tired of everything. And Don Cherry's got health issues, and he is 91 now. He's just retired from this legendary podcast that he's been doing, but he's an icon there. So they wrote this expose and quote Ron McLean as saying, yeah, I think he did it on purpose because he wanted out. Now, McLean, during the course of this diatribe, McLean was always the straight man. He would always argue with Don Cherry after Don would make these over-the-top comments on anything and everything. Ron McLean would jump right there and say, you can't say that on TV. You don't really believe that, do you, Don? Ron McLean, when this racial slur stuff happened over the poppies and the Veterans Remembrance Day incident, stood there and just was silent. He said nothing for 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, he came back and said, that was wrong. What Don Cherry did was wrong. Why the hell didn't you say something to the point it happened on your TV with you as being the co-anchor and co-host? That was stunning. I'll give you an example of how wild Don Cherry was, because he would talk hockey. He hated Russian players. John, I almost fell off the couch one night watching this. This is when the European invasion began and all these great players from the Soviet Union came. And he didn't want Russian players in the NHL. He was a purist. He's pissed off that teams from the U.S. won the Stanley Cup because the Canadians invented the damn game. So here's a story on Don Cherry. I'm sitting there one Saturday night watching Hockey Night in Canada. He goes on the Coach's Corner thing. And they're talking about Russian players. I don't know whether it was Fedorov or whomever in Detroit. One of the Russians was having a great season. And Don Cherry made the comment, those guys don't belong here, shouldn't be making all that money. They're taking the money away from the Canadian kids, et cetera, et cetera. He said, geez, I wish we would have killed all their parents at the Russian front in World War II. He said that. And I couldn't believe it. And Hockey Night in Canada did not discipline him. There was such an uproar about this guy, and he was always stepping over the line. But when he said they should have killed the parents of the Russian players at the Russian front in World War II.
Make Canada great again.
Exactly. Damn. So that's the latest on Hockey Night in Canada. And Don Cherry's refuted Ron McLean. He says our friendship is over, et cetera, et cetera. It's a big story. The old Canada Network, those followers we have in Canada, they'll probably have an opinion here. The last topic on the table, this is really weird. We're talking about the Oakview Group. The Oakview Group is a consortium puts their money together and builds arenas and runs arenas, builds arenas all over the country. The head of that group is the former president of the Los Angeles Kings, and he's a sports entrepreneur. His name is Tim Lewicki. And he's involved with San Diego State. Oakview Group runs Snapdragon Stadium, etc.
Okay.
And has been involved with Viejas. Tim Lewicki was indicted at the end of last week and forced to resign from Oakview for evidently rigging bids to build new arenas. It was a big arena at the University of Texas in Austin they just built that Oakview won the bidding rights for. There was another company that was bidding. Put your legal hat on from UCSD. Take that giant hat off. Anyhow, there's this company that's bidding to build this Coliseum at the University of Texas in Austin for the Longhorns. Oakview was also bidding. Well, there were negotiations between the two, and Lewicki got the competing company to step back and not make a bid, which was kind of a stunner. Oakview won it, built the arena. It's fabulous. But now we find out that Lewicki went to this other company and offered, you step away, let us win. We will give you the subcontracting licenses for services in the arena. Food, parking, all that.
Yeah.
We'll sublet those contracts to your firm. Let us win this bid. They say that's bribery. Now, I don't know if it's bribery or not. Anyhow, Lewicki has been indicted by a grand jury. He's could be facing 10 years in prison. I'm shocked. I know Tim for a long time in the NHL, in the NBA. It's just man's an unbelievably successful entrepreneur that he would do this. So you tell me, because you didn't cut law class the day they taught it at UCSD. So if we're bidding on the same process and I offer you a unique, different proposal, I'll give you all the subcontracts to service the arena. Just let me build the arena, etc. Is that bribery, or is that just business being business?
That's just business, being crafty and creative. I mean, it's like people say capitalism is more about sharing than it is, more about cooperation than it is about competition. And this is a great example of it. But I know that name, Tim Lewicki. I've heard that name many times. So to me, this the only thing that could twist this a weird way is if because this is a state project, right? So there probably is a lot of legal language in that, bidding process that you've got to conform to certain rules. I don't know. Maybe the state of Texas might call it collusion, who knows?
Stunning, but he's been indicted and he has been removed. And Oakview is one of the unbelievably successful companies in terms of building facilities.
Yeah.
So amazing story. Okay, so if you want to talk Wimbledon, you want to talk about the British Open, we'll talk USA Soccer. Hockey fans are invited to talk about this Don Cherry controversy or this Oakview situation with Tim Lewicki. Feel free, jump on board. Fans forum chat box is open.
Comments on that too.
Go ahead.
Okay, so real quick, the Don Cherry thing with the poppies reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where why are you not wearing your AIDS walk ribbon? That the Kramer used to get in trouble for because it's such a virtue signal thing. But it's just a funny comparison. The British Open. I was hanging out with my buddy over the weekend, and we were watching the Scottish Open, and it was on TV. And we were talking about how we love those tournaments in the UK because those bunkers are different than a bunker in the United States.
It is called a pot bunker.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Those things are huge. A lot of times when the guy shoots out of the bunker, they can't even see the flag, like the top of the stick, so some of those are just unbelievable. And we talked about, what was it last year? Was it the railroad track hole and all these different things at the course there?
Yeah. I mean, they rotate the British Open. It's either in Scotland or it's in Ireland. Sometime the odd occasion might be in England, but it's phenomenal. And it's links golf. And some guys do well. Scotty Scheffler does not do well on links golf. Xander Schauffele has not done well on links golf.
Wait, what do you mean links golf?
Wide open golf course, swales, wind, rain. All these courses are adjacent to the Irish Sea.
Okay, but I've never heard that term before. Yeah. Links golf.
Yeah, Google it when you have time. Yeah, it's phenomenal. They've tried to build some courses here in the States that kind of look like links
Oh,
golf.
interesting.
But the weather's not the same. I
Of
mean,
course not.
Scotland, Ireland, I'm sorry, is different than the Valley of the Sun or Torrey Pines, etc. So, yeah, but I tell you, it challenges your abilities, and it just mentally just blows your mind. When the elements are bad, you got to say, okay, it's bad for Rory, and it's bad for Xander. It's bad for everybody. So don't melt down because the rain is blowing in your face and it's cold. But it's great. I mean, they founded golf. That's where golf began in the 1850s, I believe, with old Tom Moore, a guy from Scotland. When you have time, Google history British Open. It's just mind blowing how this thing began.
Have you ever heard, seen the Robin Williams skit talking about the guys in Scotland when they invented golf? And it's like, I have this great idea. I'm going to take a stick and I'm going to hit the ball 400 yards and we'll see how many times it takes to hit it to get in the hole. And all his friends went, yeah, that sounds great. So the finally on the Wimbledon, first of all, at quick glance, that guy, what's his first name? Jannik Sinner?
Jannik Sinner.
Yeah, which by the way, that's a tough last name. But a quick glance, he reminded me of Jim Courier, kind of the white hat, the kind of the reddish hair and everything. 137-mile-an-hour serve.
Yeah, now he's big and rangy. Courier was more stocky.
Yeah. And then I watched the ladies championship and I really felt bad for the American. And I remember first name was Amanda.
Yeah.
And then
from New Jersey.
And she's from New Jersey, and she had a last name that sounded like an Eastern European tennis player.
Nova, I believe it is.
Yeah, that's what it was, Nova. And so I just felt bad for her.
She wasn't competitive, and I said, how did she beat Sabalenka in the semifinals?
Well, it seemed to me that she got off to such a bad start. She had a lot of unforced errors, and then mentally she just sort of lost it. And then meanwhile, what was her name? Swiatek? I mean, she was just on fire. So it was the perfect mismatch. And it was over in less than an hour. 55
minutes in a final. I think it's only the second time in the history at Wimbledon that a championship match has been decided 6-love, 6-love.
Yeah, brutal.
Okay, that's all things. Topics on the table. We've done our job. You're going to do yours. Fans